What if Carnage had no limits? What if Carnage was the superior Carnage? Welcome to the Comic Storian channel. It's here that we take your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues within the comic book industry, and I break them down into digestible bites before reading them back to you in a narrative fashion, giving you a synopsis of the storylines, allowing you to understand what is going on in the world of comic books. That way you can go out and buy the next one at your local comic book store, or go to your local digital outlet and buy it there. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and I hope you guys enjoy today's story. Now, today's story is Superior Carnage, and let me give you a little backstory as to how we got to this, because this is a interesting flash in time. It's just a quick thing that happened. There was a period in which the Scarlet Spider lobotomized Cletus Cassidy. He literally stabbed him through the brain. And Carnage was still on Cletus Cassidy during this period, but he had no body that could do anything. He had no one to be his proper host. So many villains were looking for ways to use this to their advantage. While this was going on, Spider-Man was seemingly killed, as Otto Octavius had placed his mind inside of Peter Parker's body. He declared himself the superior Spider-Man, with more knowledge, the ability to actually use his powers properly, and the ability to create an entire organization that would fund the Spider-Man operation. Otto Octavius was trying to be a superhero, but as you'll see here, made many mistakes during his period as Spider-Man. And today is going to be Superior Spider-Man versus Superior Carnage. Now, if you enjoy this story and you enjoy our way of telling you these stories, remember, Comic Storian puts out 2 to 5 videos a week, and if you click that bell and turn on notifications, you'll know each and every one that we put out. Everything from Batman to Spider-Man happens right here at the channel. All right, let's get into this. Ted Conley looks out of his cell. He's in prison for insider trading and locked away in a maximum security supervillain prison due to the overcrowding of the prison system. But he doesn't fit in here, lacking any sort of superpowers or fighting spirit, until one day the wall explodes and heavily armed guards flood into the prison. "Prison break!" one of them yells, responding to the explosion, and they scream for everyone to get down and intend to shoot anyone that won't comply. Ted does comply very quickly, and a few moments pass as the guards begin to get quiet. They decide that it was a false alarm, and that it must have been a gas leak. The time passes, and they later bring in Cletus Cassidy, the serial killer known as Carnage. Ted watches from his cell as they put the killer in the cell next to him, stating that Cassidy is effectively lobotomized. He's brain dead. But as Ted looks into his eyes, he sees the darkness and the murder trapped within. More time passes, and the guards laugh, smashing their nightstick against the energy bars of Ted's cell. He continues to taunt the scared man. He tells them about how the guards have a bet going on as to how many pairs of underwear Ted will go through being trapped next to Cassidy. "You do realize the only thing keeping you safe from that monster is a code in my head, right?" the guard asks with a sadistic smile as he begins to punch in the code to Carnage's cell. "Stop, please!" Ted begs him, but the guard's face suddenly goes slack and his eyes glow. "Yes, I understand," he says with no emotion as he begins to put the code in the door again. Ted is shocked, begging the guard to stop, but as he continues to key in the code, Cletus begins to twitch next door and the symbiote begins to wrap around his body, roaring to life. "Mother of God, no!" Ted screams, but it's too late as Carnage comes to life, his symbiotic blades cutting through the chest of the guard. The other prisoners flood from their cells as Carnage goes on yet another rampage, killing anything that gets close to it. Suddenly it whirls around, finding Ted standing against the wall of his cell, trapped. And the monster hisses at him as a yellow puddle begins to form at his feet. The blades slice through his chest. "Oh, so much blood, it's like I'm watching Game of Thrones," Wizard says with a smile as he looks at the camera feeds. The guards are trapped behind him, suspended from energy shackles, and he watches the cameras, watching as Carnage continues to cut a path of death through the prison. "Feast, my dear Carnage. Once you pave the way for our exit, I will make you my slave, my agent of evil, my soldier." But the guards try to get through to him, demanding him to release them so that they can help those in the prison. One of the guards tries to taunt Wizard, but his son tells him to shut up. Wizard looks at them both, pointing out that it is admirable that they work side by side. "My son is also becoming a man, and I wish to gain his respect by having him work by my side," Wizard tells them. But the guard continues to taunt him, and Wizard finally snaps his neck before blasting the other 2 guards. "Now time to tame the beast," he says as he walks through the prison, finding Carnage in one of the corridors surrounded by dead bodies. Cletus Cassidy, I am a wizard, and while your strength may be massive, your mind is now mine. But Carnage roars, charging at him. It is only as he gets closer that Wizard realizes his mistake. He's freed Carnage, but his mind is gone. Carnage grabs his head, slamming the villain into the wall, cracking his helmet as he throws him around. You don't understand, the Frightful Four! You are my secret weapon, you are my master plan, Wizard gasps as he tries to crawl to safety. Claw runs up behind Carnage, and he shoots off a powerful sonic blast, throwing Carnage off. But you weren't my first recruit, Wizard whispers as he looks at his new friend. Later, they have Cletus chained up in the Wizard's secret lair. Claw looks at him, questioning how the Wizard plans to keep the monster at bay since Cletus has no mind. If they can't control the host, how do they control the symbiote? But Wizard taps his helmet, explaining that he only has to tap into the symbiote's mental frequency to take control of it. He holds out the classified documents that he stole. Then we will perfect what the government did with Venom. We will create our own Agent Carnage, as they did Agent Venom. As they continue to go back and forth, with Claw wondering if Wizard really has just lost his mind after Black Bolt wrecked him, Dr. Malice enters the room and Wizard introduces Dr. Malice, a genius surgeon that he recruited to sculpt a new Carnage to their liking. And he goes on stating, I also needed a fourth for the name to make sense. Wizard then orders them to lower the platform and unchain Cassidy and to take off the sonic cage. Cassidy falls to the floor and the symbiote begins to take over, and Wizard stands over him, preparing to control his mind. But as Carnage rages, punching him in the face again and again, the monster tears off the helmet and Wizard shouts for his friends to not assist him. He must complete this. He blasts the monster with his gauntlet laser, knocking him back, and then he slams him into the ground again. But Carnage is about to make the killing blow, with Claw stepping in to hit him with a sonic cannon blast again. At that moment, Wizard begins to babble. You'll help me, won't you, son? Look how big you've gotten. Both Claw and Dr. Malice begin to realize that Black Bolt's damage did mess with the Wizard's mind. It triggered some sort of dementia that would render him harmless. But that's when Wizard snaps out of it. Rest assured, Doctor, both my plan and my intellect remain intact, and so does my hearing. He picks up his helmet, putting it back on his head, trying to control Carnage again. Meanwhile, the superior Spider-Man swings through the city with the body of Peter Parker in the mind of Otto Octavius. He hangs up at the mayor's office, informing him that he'll be hunting down the Jackal and he doesn't have time to worry about a lobotomized serial killer or a brain-damaged supervillain. He continues to swing through the city, thinking of a time when he, as Otto Octavius, would have almost considered the Wizard an intellectual equal. He wonders to himself if the Wizard even is aware that his mind is dying and that he doesn't have much time left. Meanwhile, back with the Wizard, he pulls himself off the floor. He has tried again and again to control the mind of Carnage to no avail. So Dr. Malice leans down, trying to get the Wizard to stop, and he holds up the files, explaining that Agent Venom worked because the government could choose who they wanted the symbiote to bond with. With the Carnage symbiote flowing through Cassidy's very bloodstream, it's going to be a little different. Unless you can transfer the symbiote to someone whose brain is actually working, you will never be able to control this monster, Malice says as he motions to Cassidy. So the Wizard subtly smiles as he realizes that Malice figured it out. Prepare Malice for the transfusion, he says to Claw as he walks away. Claw suddenly punches him, knocking out Dr. Malice, and he drags him across the room, strapping him to a nearby table. Dr. Malice pleads for him to stop, and as the transfusion begins, Malice's eyes suddenly go red as he screams, his tongue twisting and writhing from his mouth. But Malice roars as the symbiote takes over, ripping through the restraints. Yes, it's working. Release him and let me at him. Wizard smiles as he nods to Claw, the android releasing the sonic cage, and Carnage charges, his symbiotic blade slicing through Claw's sonic cannon in one blow. You will suffer, fools! Carnage snarls. He kicks the Wizard away, continuing to slash into Claw, and as the cyborg's body is cut open, sonic waves shoot out, weakening Carnage. But Carnage doesn't stop. In one last-ditch effort, Claw kicks him away, throwing Wizard his helmet. Too late, vermin! You are all going to die! Carnage shouts as he races at the Wizard. The man pulls on his helmet and immediately stops Carnage, causing Malice to scream in pain as his mind is taken over. Malice struggles for a moment, but finally is controlled by the Wizard, making him the superior Carnage. The villain smiles, turning happy that his new Frightful Four has been completed, and he motions to the wall of weaponry, ordering Carnage to load up on anything that he needs to prepare for their assault on the City Hall. But Carnage turns and looks at Claw as he pauses. Don't be a fool, Claw. The wizard's hold on me is tenuous at best. I am forced to obey his hypnotic suggestion, but if his mind slips even the tiniest bit, the symbiote will prevail. Claw doesn't answer, walking to the wizard. I have to fix my arm. Wizard brushes him off at first, believing Carnage to be his ultimate weapon, but Claw insists. As the man fixes his arm, he questions him about what happened with Black Bolt. The wizard smiles, explaining that Black Bolt merely gave him clarity, that it's more of an awareness spread throughout his mind. And that's when they're interrupted by Carnage. I couldn't decide on my signature weapon, so I chose them all, he snarls as they turn to see him fully armed with every weapon in the room. Excellent. Now we just need to have one more thing fall into place so we can finally take down that Johnny Storm once and for all. You mean J. Jonah Jameson? Carnage corrects him, and Wizard is confused for a moment but then catches himself. Claw then brings back to the moment, promising that his son will see him as the ruler of the world. Just promise me that when we're done you'll come back and fix my arm. Wizard smiles, pulling out a detonator. Oh my dear boy, we won't be coming back. With that, the three of them flee the massive explosion. Meanwhile, back at City Hall, Jameson is walking down the hallway with his aides, angered by the constant stream of duties he has as the mayor, when suddenly the wall explodes inward as a sonic train runs through it. The frightful four step out as Jameson's bodyguards grab him and drag him away. The guards try to fight back, but they turn to run as Carnage steps out. They don't get far as the new villain raises his weapons and opens fire on them. As more of them try to run, Carnage leaps, grabbing a woman with his symbiote tongue. Give us Jameson! He snarls as Claw continues to shoot his sonic cannon at everything. And that's when he sees Carnage is becoming more monstrous. Claw, help me out! I don't know where I am! The wizard shouts to him, confused in the crowd of fleeing citizens, and Claw leaps over to his friend, taking him by the shoulder. We're attacking City Hall! You're doing it, Wizard! He brings Wizard back a moment, his dementia kicking back. Yes, I remember. And Wizard cheers, blasting through the wall, calling for Jameson. And in a moment, Carnage is at Claw's shoulder. That was a slip, wasn't it? Because I felt all tingly here, he says with a smile. Just do your job and we'll all benefit from this. Carnage moves forward where he finds the Wizard with two trapped guards slashing through them, turning to blow a hole in the wall at Wizard's command. Wizard then steps forward, peering through the wall. Your term is up, Jameson. There's a new mayor in town, he says, but he stops as he sees Superior Spider-Man sitting on the desk, flanked by his two spider soldiers. You know why they say you can't fight City Hall? Because City Hall fights back, Spider-Man tells him. It was moments ago that Spider-Man ordered his soldiers to remove Jameson from his office and hide him in the bunker that he designated. And once the mayor was out of the room, Spider-Man turned to his soldiers. In a matter of seconds, the Wizard and his cronies are going to come through that door. He's a feeble old man who only has hours, if not minutes, before his brain succumbs to dementia. Spider-Man explains as he sits at the desk, explaining that while Carnage is with him, Cassidy has also been lobotomized. You are equipped with all the necessary items that should take them down, and I estimate that this will only take 7 minutes. Now we return to the present day, with Spider-Man leaning forward, ordering the Wizard to stand down. But Carnage suddenly moves, throwing spinning discs that decapitate the Spider Patrol. Have we got your attention? He asks as he lashes out with his arm cannon. All you've got are my minions, and you've gotten under my skin. Spider-Man snaps as he leaps over the blast, but Carnage steps forward, firing his machine guns at the wall crawler. I'm not the Carnage you're used to! I am the superior version! He shouts, a round clipping Spider-Man's shoulder as he remembers that the symbiote doesn't set off his spider sense. He then shoots his web into the monster's face and flips over him, kicking out against Claw and the Wizard. He spins Claw around, allowing the sonic cannon to then rip through the wall. Nice try, but it's gonna take more than bad aim to take me, Carnage shouts as he tosses a grenade. More of the Spider Patrol flooding in through the hole in the wall, and the grenade goes off, throwing Superior Spider-Man against the wall. Claw opens fire on the approaching soldiers, upping his vibrations and disorienting Spider-Man. He moves to try and stop Claw, but stumbles, slamming into the ground. But Claw's arm suddenly goes on the fritz, giving Spider-Man enough time to rush the Wizard and tackle him out the window. I need to remove the head of the serpent, he thinks to himself, as they slam into the pavement outside, where they're immediately mobbed by the City Hall reporters who have gathered. Flashes go off as pictures are taken and questions are hurled at the Wizard. What are you doing here? What are your plans? What do you hope to accomplish? They all shout, and the Wizard tries to stand, still groggy. I just want to connect with my son. He stammers, and Spider-Man steps forward, angry at the reporters as he snaps the wizard's wrist. More pictures are taken and he shoots a web to block the lenses. "Idiots!" he snaps as he leaps away with the wizard in tow. He pulls them up to the rooftop where he tells the villain to call off his attack before more people get hurt, but the wizard smiles, telling Spider-Man that he is rooted around in his head, and then he stops, his eyes going wide. "Otto? What?" Spider-Man questions as he drops the wizard, who now realizes who he really is. The villain plummets to the ground, slamming into a parked car. "My brain must be at its end. I can't even read the correct minds anymore." And at that very moment, he slips, losing control of Carnage. "Yes! The wizard has lost his grip! Carnage reigns supreme!" The monster shouts inside. He turns to rush at Claw, who realizes that something must have happened to the wizard. He tries to use his arm cannon, but it's still not working, and Carnage pounces. Outside, Spider-Man rushes to the wizard, who is still weak. "I just wanted to see my son one last time." Spider-Man leans forward. "Wizard, listen to me. You are not wrong. It is I, Otto Octavius. Get Carnage to stand down, and I will let you see your son." But Spider-Man is suddenly slashed in the back by Carnage, who's become more monstrous, and Spider-Man leaps at him. "I'll bury you!" he shouts, and the two trade blows back and forth as Spider-Man tries to protect the wizard. But Claw flies in, pulling the hero away, misunderstanding what is even happening. He leans forward, blasting Spider-Man with enough sonic waves to melt his brain, but Carnage is behind them, stabbing Claw through the chest. "I told you I'd get you!" Claw begins to vibrate as the energy builds up inside of him. "You stupid idiot! We could have had this city, and now you've signed your own death warrant!" He tries to apologize to the wizard, but suddenly explodes in a blast of sonic vibrations. With that, moments pass as Spider-Man pulls himself out of the rubble, his ears ringing as he glances over to see that Carnage wasn't even Cletus Cassidy. But he stands glad that Carnage is defeated. "Am I dead?" the wizard asks, and Spider-Man looks over at him, his eyes widening as the Carnage symbiote begins to bond with him. "I feel wet. Are these my guts? I feel funny, like something is taking over my mind." But Claw still exists as sonic energy in the air, and he watches as the Carnage symbiote is taking over his friend. The wizard begins to lift a nearby car over his head, demanding to know where his family is, and Spider-Man webs up the car as Wizard throws it, radioing for more spider soldiers to get over here. "Bring the flamethrowers!" he shouts, but Carnage rushes forward, slamming Spider-Man into the ground. "You promised me my son!" "That wasn't the deal. I said I'd deliver him if you help me control Carnage." He kicks him away, and the two begin to trade blows back and forth, with Carnage's blade slashing across Spider-Man's body. The Spider Patrol then arrives, armed with flamethrowers, but the prototypes fizzle out, and Spider-Man has no choice but to grab a parking meter, bashing Carnage across the head. "Spider-Man, someone claiming to be the wizard's son is here!" One of the soldiers shouts, and Spider-Man slaps the man, telling him to shut up and stop giving information away. But Carnage rushes forward, and the two begin to fight back and forth. But it's that moment that Otto realizes that he is not strong enough in Peter's body, and Carnage begins to wrap around his head, lifting him up, stabbing him through the stomach. "Bring me my family!" he demands, pulling Spider-Man closer. All right, you can have him." Carnage drops him as Spider-Man looks up at him. "I'm sorry, Wizard. I wasn't talking to you," he says as he motions behind them, where the soldiers are removing Cletus's body from its gurney. "Be careful what you leave behind, Wizard. You never know what you might find sifting through the ashes." Carnage suddenly screams, abandoning the wizard, slithering across the table to get back to Cletus. "Contain it!" Spider-Man shouts, but the symbiote attacks his men before they can react. Spider-Man moves quickly, grabbing one of the sonic guns, aiming it at the monster. "Stay back! This body is mine!" Carnage snarls at him as it begins to take over Cletus. "My God," Spider-Man gasps as the symbiote moves too fast, destroying the weapon in his hands. Knocking Spider-Man away, it leans over the body of the fallen wizard. "I will feast on my captor!" It growls as its jaws widen, but the energy of Claw has seen enough, and a powerful blast of energy rips through the sky, striking Carnage, blasting the symbiote off of Cletus and stunning it. "Contain the symbiote!" Spider-Man orders to his men. And at that moment, Spider-Man finally won. He was the superior being. Afterwards, emergency services take control of the scene. The Carnage symbiote is locked away by Spider-Man, contained from causing further damage. And in the hospital, it seems that Wizard's brain tumor was healed by the symbiote, with the doctors believing that he might make a full recovery. One of the Spider Patrol questions whether he remembers anything, but they aren't sure, as the villain still seems to be kind of confused. But he's not the only one who's been healed, because in the darkness of his cell, Cletus smiles evilly as he writes on the wall of his prison, "Carnage rules." And there you have it, Superior Carnage. You see, what ended up happening was Scarlet Spider and Agent Venom got shrunken down and battled against Carnage in the Microverse. At the end of that, Scarlet Spider lobotomized Cletus, but this was Marvel Comics' way of giving Cletus back his mind so he could eventually fight against him in things like King in Black and other battles that ended up happening with Carnage. I think it was Extreme Carnage first, or is that the new one? Or Absolute Carnage? There's a lot of Carnage series, guys. I'm trying to keep track of them all. If you enjoyed this and want to get more Marvel and DC in your feed, make sure you go over and click that bell, which will give you notifications that we are bringing stuff to you. We try to do 2 to 5 videos a week, so if you enjoy comic books and you want to stay up to date, we are here for you on that aspect. And if you really do appreciate it and you want to support us, please consider hitting that like button, checking out our subscribe so you can, make sure you get all those notifications like I said, and join us over at Patreon, at patreon.com/comicstorian, where you and many others get to vote on the series coming to the channel. We have Batman the Animated Series coming out and some Wolverine books coming out. I've just been backlogged with a lot of stuff, but we are getting it all out there very soon and opening up our next vote. Thank you guys so much for your time, and we'll see you next time right here at Comic Storian.